Hey folks, I'm Rob.
And I'm Nathan.
And we are
Two Guys in a Ride.
Say, Nate, where are we at today? There should be like a sign or something.
Yeah, there should be a sign somewhere. Hey, we are at the Scca Jack Pine Sprints at the Brainerd International Raceway in Brainerd, Minnesota.
That's right, and we're going to bring you some race footage, but more importantly, we're going to talk to some of the drivers and get their perspective and find out why they like racing and what has gotten them into this. So before we do that, Nathan,
click on the subscribe button down below and ring that bell notification so you never miss a video.
That's right. So what do you say, Nate?
Oh, let's go to the races. Hi folks, I'm Nathan with Two Guys in a Ride, and today we're here at the Scca races, and we're here with Mark. Mark, tell us first of all, how did you get it? You've been racing for almost 30 years?
Actually, over 30 years.
Over
I started
30.
in autocross in 1986.
Oh, wow. So how did you get into it in the first place? I mean, did you always have a love for cars as a kid? Was it related to your parents? Or
I had a love for cars when I was a young kid. And how I got involved with Scca Motorsports, I worked at a gas station that was next to a parking lot where they were holding an autocross.
Okay.
And I heard tires squealing all morning, and I had to go figure out what was going on. And I went to that event and talked to the organizer, and she was a lovely, lovely woman. She said, you can run any car you want. At that time, the entry fees for an autocross was $20, and they had loaner helmets. And I called up my then girlfriend, now wife Mary, borrowed her car because her car was a little bit better than mine for this kind of purpose, and came back and ran my first autocross without even knowing what it was.
Wow. And you fell in love with it?
Absolutely.
So at what point did you come down here and start to race these kind of cars?
Like I said, we started in autocross in 86.
Mm-hmm.
In 87 and 88, we started coming up here and working corners. The volunteers that staffed the race. And there was another Dodge Omni racing, and that was the car that I was autocrossing at the time. And I told Mary that if that car was ever for sale, we'd have to think about going road racing. And it came up for sale, and we bought it and started road racing in 91.
And a Dodge Omni.
Yep.
Wow. It just amazes me at the kind of cars that, that people can race. Now, speaking of which, tell us about this car.
Well, this is a 95 Honda Civic. My wife and I built this car from a street car.
Okay.
We did a motor swap. We've installed an Integra Type R drivetrain.
Okay.
And then in this class, we're allowed to do different suspension, springs, shocks, as long as they attach to the stock points.
Okay.
So most of this car is all bolt-on stuff.
Okay.
Obviously, we fabricate the roll cage.
Yep.
But the drivetrain and everything is mostly stock parts. It's just a bigger, better motor than was in this car to begin with. But in the class that I run, Super Touring Light, you're allowed engine swaps up to 2 liters from the same manufacturer.
Okay. And so about how many horsepower is your motor turning out?
This one, when we dynoed it to tune it, we ended up at about 185 at the wheels.
Okay, and about how many foot-pounds of torque?
Not enough.
Not enough. Now, is this set up so that your power's all in the upper RPMs?
Absolutely. We've got this motor set up to run 9,000 RPM.
Oh, wow.
And it really doesn't do much below 6.
Wow. Now, did you do anything special with the exhaust?
The exhaust is just some eBay special stainless steel exhaust. It's a 2.5-inch system, and there's so much aftermarket support for these platform cars. I ordered it up for, I think it was $120, all the way from the header back. It's got a resonator and a muffler because it's a race car. We don't run a catalytic converter.
Right. Wow. So, you mentioned that you and your wife have done this together. So, does your wife race as well?
She doesn't race anymore.
She used to
run a number of events. When we started autocrossing, we shared the car.
Okay.
We got into pro rally or stage rally for a while, and she ran a couple of those events. But she doesn't have the need for the competition that I do.
That you do.
So
I won't ask you who had the best lap time, though. Mary says that was you.
Oh, that's just experience.
Oh, that is neat, though. And so, does she help you with some of the car modifications then, too?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, Mary and I turned this car from a street car into a race car.
So when you say we did it, you're not just being polite.
No. When we're bending the tube for the roll cage, she's there helping me set up, double checking everything. And when we're welding it together, you've got to have somebody there helping you. When you pull a motor on this, you've got to have 18 eyes on different places to make sure you didn't forget something.
Well, I tell you what, you sure married right for wanting to find someone who has shared a common interest like this. That's incredible.
I absolutely know how lucky I am, and am very appreciative of it.
Now, in terms of electronics, on your dashboard, you do have a digital display. You've got some analog gauges, but is that like a TrackMate where it keeps track of your lap times and acceleration and braking and that kind of stuff?
It's similar to that. It's an AIM system.
Okay.
And it's a data logger. There's one display, and all of my vital engine information reads out on that.
Okay.
Water temperature, water pressure, oil temperature, oil pressure, everything that I need to know. And then there are programmable LED warning lights that I can set a bunch of different parameters. So if, for example, my oil is too cold, one of those will light up blue.
Okay.
Until it gets warm enough, then it'll go out. And if the oil gets too hot, that same indicator will come on red.
So it's like shift points on a car where they'll flash.
Yep.
But you can set for a number of different things.
Right.
Wow.
And across the top of that display is the normal shift lights that you see on many other race cars.
Right. Now, I do notice, since we happen to be seeing towards the back of the car, you're one of the few cars I've seen that's running a GoPro off the back.
There's a lot of fancy stuff that happens behind you.
Behind?
And if you've only got a camera pointing out the front, you don't get to see the stuff that happened behind you.
So you're capturing, you got one camera that goes out front, one camera that goes out rear. I like that idea. I think that's smart. And you have, basically you have everything but your car.
Yep. Well, the camera that goes out the front is inside the car.
So you're catching your hood.
We're catching the hood. You can also see me a little bit, what I'm doing with the wheel, what I'm doing with the pedals.
Okay,
what I'm doing with the shifter.
So it's got a really wide angle.
It does. And, realistically, there are a lot of people that use it for improving their performance. I just think it's fun to watch the video afterwards.
Oh, I'd absolutely agree. Some of our viewers will be racers. Some of our viewers will be people who have never been introduced to racing. And some will be people who've looked at it and thought, well, that'd be really neat, but gosh, you'd have to be rich and full-time. And when you started racing, did you quit your daytime job and start racing, or did you actually have a full-time job and you raced on the side?
I have always had a full-time job. This has been a hobby for us, an expensive hobby for sure. But the opportunities to be a full-time race car driver are very few.
Right, you want to be up in the NASCAR levels for that.
And somebody that has the drive to do that, I say go for it. But just know that it may not work out. I was never that good. I just enjoy it so much that I've not been able to get away from it.
It's a little bit of a, it's kind of like an adrenaline rush every time you get out there and get that, that feeling of being on the track with other people. The other thing we notice is that you have certain people that you've raced with for a very long time, but you also, I would imagine, have a larger community of people that you see at the races, that you run into, that, it's kind of like a large racing family.
It's absolutely a family. We just brought a group of 3 younger people that live about 4 houses south of us, down in the metro area. And they stopped by one day because one of the race cars was outside. And we just started talking about race cars, and they're enthusiasts. And I said, we've got this race coming up in a couple weeks. Why don't you come up and hang out? And that's the best way to get new people involved, is just kind of mentor them and find out what they're interested in, find a way that they can enjoy it as much as we do.
And as you'll see in some of our other videos, if you watch down through the whole list of videos from this weekend, you'll see that, you don't have to own your car. You can go over and rent one.
Yep.
And it's a different class, but you can get into racing for way less money than you're probably thinking.
Yes.
If that's, but, absolutely, you come up and you watch it. We've been on the weekend here, and it's a blast. Of course, we've been standing on the corners as the cars go whizzing by, which is a great perspective that not everyone gets. But, wow, I can definitely see why people, it's like an adrenaline rush.
It's an adrenaline rush that I can't even describe.
You don't get it anywhere else.
You don't get it anywhere else. And, especially the start of a race, when you're in a group of anywhere from 20 to 50 cars, and everybody's side by side, and you're coming down to where they're going to throw that green flag. The exhilaration and anticipation of that moment. And then when the green flag comes out and everybody is trying to get to the front right now, it's very, very exciting. And then after the field kind of spreads out after the first lap, that's when strategy comes in. A lot of these cars, you have to save a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you use it all at the beginning, it won't be as good at the end.
Okay.
So you might move up at the beginning of the race, but then you'll fall back at the end. And also knowing who you're driving with, because there are some drivers that are more aggressive than others, just like in any other form of racing. And you know who those drivers are, and if you're one of the aggressive ones, you can follow them and get through the pack a lot quicker. But it's all of these things play into what is so attractive and interesting.
Not only do you get the rush of, if I'm understanding you right, the rush of the feeling of racing, but there's a mental challenge as the driver to pick the right spot, to make the corners right, to be at the right RPM. So you're constantly thinking about what's going on just that second or coming up a few seconds in front of you. A little bit of like a game of chess with cars.
There's absolutely, elements of setting up what you want to get done. You compared it to chess, and you might have to make 4 moves before the end goal is available.
Yep.
And we refer to it as racecraft.
Racecraft. That's a good term. What's one of your favorite memories?
I have been very lucky through the different forms of motorsport to run at some pretty iconic places.
Okay.
The 4 biggest ones is I was able to run the Pikes Peak Hill Climb for 4 years. Another one is racing at Circuit of the Americas down by Austin, Texas.
Okay.
It's a Formula One level racetrack. Another one is racing at Road America, which I think is a gorgeous track. I do have to say racing at Brainerd is my favorite because it's my home track. Right. But a couple years ago, we got to do something that I never, ever considered I would ever have the opportunity to do. We ran the Sports Car Club of America runoffs, the national championship race at Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Wow.
I got to race this little car at Indy.
Yeah.
And to see our car number on the scoring pylon, and to get a picture crossing the yard of bricks, to be on the Jumbotron, the 40-foot big screen, and then Mary got a picture of me coming off the track underneath the gasoline alley sign.
Oh, nice.
These are all things that, you know, anybody who has an interest in racing anywhere close to what our whole group does, is stuff that didn't seem attainable. And we got to do it. It was just incredible.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for taking your time today to talk to us about your car and your racing and your career and your family. We sure appreciate it.
It was very much my pleasure.